Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Hope you're having a fantastic Friday. This is Teal Gray at Teal Gray Worldwide, and today we are having our first video event, and I want to welcome Mark Fults, Tui Snider, Linda Rhinehart Neas, and Claudia Hall Christian. Everybody, we are all on here together, and so everyone is able to see us at the same time, so I think that's kind of fantastic. We are, of course, promoting none other than Spirited Tales. So in this, you guys did some phenomenal work, and the stories are just fantastic. I have to tell you, some of the ways that people are using the book and giving me feedback about it has really been something that was a little unexpected for me. I thought it was going to be a summer read that would be fun and people would enjoy, but they are taking it with them. And from the very first launch night, where, by the way, we went to #1, which was pretty exciting.
Yay!
I felt like a little bit, I told Tui, I said, I feel like almost an election, because the numbers
Exactly.
sometimes we'd drop as other books would add it. Oh no, I thought we were on, and then the landslide is back and forth. And I mean, by the time, I felt like a wet noodle by the time we actually hit #1 and we reached it, but it was great. And so that first night, I had the first comments come in. This lady was having a sleepover for her senior teenage daughter, and about 20 people. So they had this enormous thing going on. And she said she thought at that age they would kind of outgrow the, oh, I'm bored, what are we going to do? But no, she said they weren't. And she thought, oh my gosh. And she just had purchased this as an ebook. And so she went in there and she said, do you guys want to get terrified? And they're like, we would love to. And so they're like, but do it because you're old and all this stuff, and they were teasing. And she said, really? Okay, well, because I'm already looking at this, and this really freaked me out. And so she hands them the Kindle, and a good half of these kids, she said, were thespians, so they were in the theater and used to doing direct, and they're like, oh, we can read parts, we can take, so they just took her iPad, and they were just going to town, and they started, no, me, and they were passing it around, and she said it was well into 2 a.m. and these kids, she could still, they were laughing and they were scaring each other, and somebody go to the bathroom and they'd come back, because somebody'd hide, and so they had a great time with it. And I thought, that's fantastic. And I had another set of ladies contact me that same weekend and say they were going on their first get together as a group of friends they hadn't been together and she said like 12 years, and they used to go to camp together. That was their thing. That's how they became friends, and all that. And every summer they would go to this camp. And she said when they were young, they, of course, sit around the campfire, tell ghost stories, and get everybody terrified. And then you'd go to your bunk beds and think, oh God, is there something out here with us? And Tui, you know those experiences. You used to go to camp.
Oh yeah.
And so she said, now we're grown, very grown, older women. She said, so we all got the book, so we're going to take our books with us when we go to our outing, but we're going to sit around the campfire with a glass of wine. So we have them using the book in all sorts of different ways, and I think that's fantastic. I think that's more than we could ask for. So
it's very fun.
Yeah. So let's give a little start around the room if you want. And Claudia, I'll start with you if it's okay. If you'll just let everybody know a little bit about yourself and your fantastic work and how they can find you even, and then we'll go around to everybody after that.
I write fiction. That's my fantastic work. I write mysteries, thrillers, serial fiction. My serial fiction, Denver Serial, just passed over its 9th year, which puts it in the contending for the longest serial fiction ever. We're in contention with 2 other people. And maybe they'll stop, and so then we'll win if that's an award. I write the Alex of Faith thrillers, and I write mysteries, the Seth and Ava mysteries, and I write some regional fiction. And I also am a certified ghost hunter and beekeeper. And come find out about me at claudiahallchristian.com. I don't know what else.
Fascinating. I love it.
Thanks.
Okay, Linda.
Hi. So I am an interfaith minister, and I also teach English as a second language to refugees and immigrants. And I am a poet and a writer too. So I have my fingers in all kinds of pies. I live in Western Massachusetts, where right now it's pouring buckets out, and we live in a haunted house, which is kind of nice because I don't mind. It used to be the town's grocery store, and we have residue energy that wanders in and out all the time through the back of the sofa, because that's where the door to the store used to be. So we'll be sitting there and all of a sudden have this cold thing go past us, and oh, hi, how you doing? Anyway, lots of fun, and I love writing, and so that's me.
Wonderful. Sir Mark.
Yes, I am a psychic, witch, or Wiccan. I have written books, Chattanooga Chills Scream Louder. Right now I've got 3 books in the pot working. And I'm about to start a walking ghost tour called Chattanooga Chills Ghost Tours in Chattanooga. Oh yeah, it'll be fun. Yeah. And as far as like haunted houses, yeah, every time I pick a house, I always make sure to find a ghost inhabited house, because first of all, the rent is better. The rent is great, because no one else will touch it. And then 2, it gives character, and then it gives me more things to look at and do. And we have a ghost here that every so often you'll hear the radio playing, old music, and you go towards it and it'll disappear, or you'll see this black figure of a man come through and he'll look at all the stuff in the living room and stuff like that, nothing too scary. But and so but I mean I'm working on, I'm a songwriter, an illustrator, a author, so I mean I've got my hands in several pies there. So
and an artist.
I enjoy it.
A wonderful artist.
Oh, thank you.
Well, Miss Tui Snider, who are you?
Hey there, hi stranger. All right, well, my name is Tui Snider, and I am a Texas-based travel writer primarily. I specialize in offbeat and overlooked destinations, places that people might think are boring until they go there. I love haunted lore as well, and I write a lot about historic cemeteries. I have a blog over at tuisnider.com. I've been putting articles on there since 2009. It now has over 600 articles, so you can dig around and have fun there. But in 2014, I started writing books inspired by the Lone Star State, and I have not been able to stop. My book's first one was called Unexpected Texas, takes you to quirky and offbeat places. Then, of course, while I was investigating that, I heard all these great ghost stories, because Texans are really good, like natural-born ghost storytellers. So I wrote a haunted guide. I mean, the guide itself isn't haunted. I always say that. It's a guide, travel guide to haunted, maybe it is. It's a travel guide to haunted places in Texas. Here, I'll get the glare off it there. It's called Paranormal Texas. Then I wrote a book, a little departure. It's called The Lynching of the Santa Claus Bank Robber. Once again, this is true. It's very, very crazy. Don't have time to get into it, but very crazy book. Guys seem to like this one a lot. Then, of course, I have some photos. I'm a bit of a shutterbug, so I have a bunch of photos from cemeteries where I'm always going to haunted cemeteries, or haunted or not, bringing home little spirits of children with me, according to Teal. And, a bunch of my photos are in here, this first wonderful book, anthology. And then my current, I forgot this part too. I am also a musician, and last summer I was a writer in residence for the Langdon Review, and so that inspired me to have my first photography show. So I also composed a CD of original dream pop music, and then I made a little book to go with it with the lyrics and photos in it. And then lastly, I am now currently working like crazy all day, 12-hour days, trying to finish up a book about, it's a field guide to historic cemeteries called Understanding Cemetery Symbols. A field guide to historic cemeteries, I think, something like that. Anyway, if you go to Amazon and you put Tui Snider and cemeteries in there, it is currently available for pre-order. And I made the paperback version half price. This is going to be like a 250-page book full of photos and info and my blood, sweat, and tears for only $9.99 right now. I sound like I should be selling something like a blender or Julia knives. No, but seriously. And then I made a companion workbook to go with it.
Oh,
this is because I noticed that I would forget sometimes when I was going around, and I'm as a writer, I think a lot of us like to keep journals. And I thought, I need a dedicated one just for historic cemeteries. So what's neat about this is when you flip into it, the table of contents, at first you might think, what the heck? The first few pages are labeled, or the first couple of chapters labeled, and then it's just blank. That's so you can put the names of the cemeteries and you create the table of contents yourself, because I do that in my journals. It's so helpful. And I think this would be a neat thing. So after, it's got room for like 50 cemeteries. And then when you're done, you can you're totally done with life. You could pass it along to people, or you could share it with your friends one way or the other. I think it's a neat little thing. So that's what I'm all excited about. And of course, naturally, Spirited Tales. I have that as well here. Woohoo! Very excited to be part of this book. And Teal was talking about people getting into the spirit of Spirited Tales and reading it at camp and stuff. I actually had insomnia a couple weeks ago, and I hadn't really read the book yet. So I sat out on our front porch with a flashlight.
Yeah.
With a flashlight on my shoulder reading it. And I got jumpier and jumpier and more. It was pretty stupid. It was really perfect and yet stupid at the same time. I enjoyed it, but I was really trashed the next day. So
I love that.
Yeah, it was very fun.
It was like I sat in the dark with a flashlight and I was terrifying myself.
I got it on my shoulder and I was just like, oh, a moth would go by. I'd be like, oh, I'm not worried at all. And then a moth would go by and I'd be like, oh, I guess this is getting to me. So.
Well, Mark, you said that when you were reading the book, you kept looking behind your shoulder and behind your back because you were like, there's somebody in here with me.
In Shades of Angels,
Shades of
the
Angels,
knock 3 o'clock story really kind of,
and that's in this one as well.
That got me too.
and now it's one of my favorites. I think it's good because anything about children usually is very eerie to begin with.
Yeah.
And in this book, there's several very, very good, good boo.
Yeah, a good moments.
And it was fun, and it's awfully fun to put everything in. I got to put in some of my mother's ghost stories that used to scare the crap out of me.
That's fun.
Yeah.
And they were just fun, and they were good, told in a good Victorian, the Victorians had just a different style of pausing and waiting and getting the right vibe.
Let you get in the mood. Yeah. Well, speaking of eliciting emotion, I have to say that two of the stories that people get very emotional about are Claudia's.
Oh.
They are getting very into moments with your sweet story about your sweet rose. Harassed by crows is the title in the book, and so many people really didn't have a context to put things that had happened to their animals into, and so reading that story, they didn't have same for same, but there were certain parts of it that rang true for them, and they had always felt like something was harassing their animal, something unseen, something, and your story sort of gave them a little push to go, I'm not crazy, somebody else, this actually is a real thing. And so it's been endearing to them in that way and uplifting to them in a sort of way, for them to kind of know these things are possible. These things are real. And the other one that stays with people and then sends their imagination reeling, and I've had people want me, as you know, Claudia, we talked just briefly about it, to bring them to do a tour, go to Colorado and visit this place, and I was like, I don't know.
Because I keep saying no.
Colorado, but I don't know about going to the building, but we'll see.
Right.
And So if you wouldn't mind starting us out and just talking a little bit about, you know, the haunted building where you used to be, and a little bit about that story for people, would you mind?
No, I didn't mind at all.
Great. And then if you
I
could touch on
I thought all
growth.
the stories were really great, and so, but I'm happy to talk about what happened. To start with, my dog Rose was 14 and a half. She went into the vet, and she was just going to get some lumps removed, and they wanted to get her teeth cleaned. And so they did that. She wasn't even there all day, but when she came out, she was very different. And I was working on a book, and so I wasn't, you know, paying that much attention. She was sick. We were home together. I just stayed with her. And over time, so the way that I live my life, I don't know if maybe you guys are much more aware, is I just kind of live my life and I don't really assess it. And so over time, I realized that there were a lot of crows in our neighborhood. I mean, it was very, very strange. There was a whole tree full of a murder of crows. I went to the market, and this crow stopped on the mid-level wall and started yelling at me, and I had no idea. Rose and I were sitting on the couch, and I mean, I have never been crows in this neighborhood. We've lived here since 2002. Rose and I were sitting on the couch, and the crows were flying between my house and the house next door. You could see the underside of their wings as they were flying in between the houses in front of a window that I could see them at. And then we left to go spend time in California just to kind of get away from all this chaos and spend a month in the warm with Rose, and the crows were there, and people were saying, "Gosh, I've never seen that many crows in a place." It's
Yeah.
crazy. It's just
Yeah.
crazy. And so I don't know. I mean, I think maybe it would be worth thinking about doing a pets passing on book about it, because I certainly had no idea, and there was nothing that I could find on the internet about this happening to anybody else.
No.
We came back from California. She was alive. She lived probably a month longer, and the day that she died, the crows disappeared. I haven't seen one since. I mean, I literally, it's not that I haven't seen them, like I haven't noticed them. They're not here anymore. And so it's very weird.
I really think you should, Claudia, do a book on that, because really there's been a number of people who were in your same situation where they don't find what they need. There's no
Right.
resource.
Right.
And for you, having unfortunately lived through that, you can speak to them in a voice where I always think it's different when somebody can empathize, but then when you're telling somebody, no, I understand because you've been there, that's a different exchange. So I think, you know, that would be great. And it's also interesting because, you know, crows and ravens, they have such an incredibly fantastic memory and interaction with people. That's very, I think, special and sort of a unique thing that it was crows particularly that were involved.
Yeah, or at least I think it was crows. I mean, I don't know, you know, I'm not sure that I would know the difference. And they were big black birds, and they had a lot to say, and they were everywhere. And I didn't feel like they were malicious or there was any malfeasance or that they meant us any harm. They were just there. And it was like, you know, and again, maybe it's just me writing fiction. I'm not always here all the time, so I'm kind of thinking about things, but they literally, was like tripping over them everywhere I went. There were crows.
Mark, you had something to say. You'll have to speak a little louder.
Yeah.
In metaphysics, that's considered an omen, a sign. You know, I mean, Hecate, who is basically a spirit who helps people and animals transition from life into death. And so crows and black dogs and things like that are symbols and signs of Hecate. And it's just something that's happening to let you know, I mean, it's just, it's omens to let you know what's happening, and knowing that there's a deeper metaphysical meaning. So, but,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, there were crows that were trying to tell me something, and I kept looking it up on the internet. I mean, they would stop me and just go, like I was supposed to get something. And to this day, I have no idea. I've asked shamans, I've asked people, you know, is there a way to translate this? I still have no idea what they were saying.
I wondered if it was some sort of an attachment that you know, attached to her at the vet and came home with her, because I know Dewey, if she comes to visit me or at my office, she has a trail of little dead children that I have to.
Oh.
Yeah, every time.
Wow.
I'm like, have a whole room of dead children with you. She's like, I was at the cemetery on my way over here, and I went to their graves, and I was like, well, I need to send them on, you know, back home.
Right.
You know, it's I don't know, but that'd be something to research for sure. And Mark, that's a good point.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Mark's a psychic. You're a psychic too. Yeah, the rest of you have better impressions than I do. Certainly, I just see things and go, "Wow, that's weird." I'm kind of like, life's observer.
A lot of times that's all it is. It's weird, you know. But if it continues, there's some kind of message going on.
Yeah, I didn't get it. So, I mean, and she was really, you know, people would stop us and say what an angel she was. You know, schizophrenics in the park would say, you know, that dog is an angel. And so maybe it was that, you know, was some kind of welcoming her home. She did not want to leave. And so we kept her here as long as she was willing to be here. So, and then we had to put her down. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, in cemetery symbols, birds are used to represent the flight of the soul to heaven. I don't know, you know, crows, of course, people, because they're black, they tend to have different connotation. People project a lot of stuff on them. But I did have a friend who was, the crows were attracted to her, and she was complaining about crows are dive bombing me. We thought, oh, you're just walking by their nesting area. You know, any bird would get upset with that. I mean, I've had that happen. Sure, any animal gets a little, you know, I've had squirrels yell at me, whatever. So we kind of forgot about it. She said, no, she said it hurt her feelings. She was really, they were like, oh, calm down. Finally, one day we were on a picnic with her in a place we'd never been before. So you can't say that they recognized her. She hadn't been there. And as we were loading stuff back to the car, the crows were like flying down so low and over her head. And I was right next to her at one point. I could feel the wind rushing by, and they were just angry at her. So later on, flash forward to a potluck a few months later, a Native American woman came up to my friend and told her that, oh, you have such strong eagle energy around you. Are you aware of that? And it all kind of clicked that crows were treating her the way they do birds of prey. You know how they treated her the same. They scold them. They're like, get out of here. I hate you, eagle, you know, whatever. And so then that made her feel a little better about it, at least. And we had always, she's very bird-like. So suddenly all of us listening, we just went, now that makes sense. I mean, I know that doesn't quite explain your dog thing, but it is interesting. The whole bird suddenly taking an interest in you is always like, what?
Well, especially in someone as uninteresting as I am. So it's like,
you are very interesting.
You told their story. I mean, so you brought attention to that there's something going on with it. So you told the story. And I think that's what, you know, what's happening. They knew that you were going to be doing something to that would bring attention to a mystical happening. So,
well, the other thing that was going on at the same time that I don't think was related, because the crows were gone. As soon as Rose died, the crows were gone. But I was working on this book about the Salem witches that's called Suffer a Witch. It's a fictional book about the witches living in modern day Boston. And it's actually the only book so far that's just about the witches, that doesn't include the kids and doesn't include the people and doesn't include the governor and all that stuff. So it easily could be that too, except that the crows left as soon as Rose did. So
that's interesting. That's interesting, but please do put that on your possibility list for a book on that, Claudia. I think that would be really helpful. Now,
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, well, since you were doing a book about witches, whether it was fiction or not fiction, Hecate is a part of which mysticism, lore, belief systems. And you may have brought that up by doing the book. And that's why, so it might have been connected with what you were doing with that. Doesn't mean you did something wrong or something, it was just something showing you, because with people who are in mysticism, they get omens all the time. And so by doing that, you just opened up yourself to a little bit of that omen,
It's interesting because you did say black dogs, and I didn't want to get dogs, but then my husband fell in love with these dogs on the internet, and we now have 2 black dogs.
That's interesting. Yeah. Like, there you go.
Right.
Now,
and one of the symbolisms for crow is personal transformation, and as well as mystery of creation, and so
yeah,
right.
Very
sounds, yeah, it seems like it's all playing in together,
Yeah.
And my partner, when he was a child, raised 2 crows, and Auk and Jet, and they can be taught to speak. They can be taught. They're very intelligent.
Yeah, they're very smart.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, they're really smart. Yeah.
My brother had a crow when I was about 7, and its name was Joe, and it was very interesting. But it had very specific people, like you're talking about your friend, that it did not like, and he would have to keep it put up in his room or something, because it would attack him. But I want to go. Claudia, to your next story while we're on topic of 2 black dogs.
Yeah. See, I avoided that whole thing.
Oh boy. Well, until Claudia and I were friends, I had, not to give it away, I want her to tell the story, but the part of her story that includes these 2 black dogs, I remember that when it happened, and it fascinated me. And Mark had the same situation. I said, can you believe all this time later now we know Claudia? And so I'll turn it over to you, because people were really riveted by that story.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, I feel bad because I'm doing all the storytelling.
No, we're gonna move it. We're gonna move ahead.
I really just appreciate you guys that have all the wisdom, and so I appreciate. Like I said, I just see this stuff happening and go, "Oh, that's weird."
And this is for the story, things that go bump.
Right. I needed an office. I was a psychotherapist. I was just starting, and so I went to this place that had inexpensive offices in this grand building. And so there really wasn't, it was perfect for us because there wasn't really anything that we had to add. We didn't have to buy a lot of furniture, and we didn't have to do anything. In fact, somebody gave us this 10-foot really long couch that fit right into this narrow little office that we had, and chairs, and we had everything. It was really easy. And so we moved right into this place called the Croak Patterson Mansion. And once we got there, we were probably there about a week before we started to experience weird things. And then the owner tells us these stories. The story that Tui is referring to specifically is that when this building was being converted from a single residence to offices, the owner kept having things go missing, get stolen, and they kept hearing what they thought was either a typewriter, or sometimes they'd hear a baby cry. And so they got these Dobermans, basically watchdogs. They rented them and put them in the building at the time to stay overnight. And when they came back the next morning, the Dobermans had run out the windows onto the flagstone below from the second floor story window, out through the window that was actually mine. So not only did they go through a plate glass, but they went right out onto the flagstone and were dead by the time the guy got there. And he was gone probably 6 hours, 7 hours, because it was one of those things where they were working late and then starting early. So they, people say they were
It was your specific windows, which
Was
is
my
amazing.
windows of my office, yeah. So the people say they were either chased out or they were lured out or something, but that, you know, you can't, of course, a dead dog, you don't really know what happened except that the windows were broken. I mean, they went through the glass to the
So really, something terrified them to the point of jumping.
right.
And these are not puppies; these are guard dogs. So that to
Right.
me is
Trained guard dogs.
Yeah, that's the thing that people are having this emotion about, because they're like, those are trained, you know, professionals, if
Right.
you will, and they are not scared. They're meant to go in when they see something, you know, and attack. So I thought that was really something. Now, you know,
so then I'm like, ha 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 ha, that's weird. Let's just keep working here, which is like, there's something wrong with me. Yeah. Anyway, you were going to ask a question.
You said that now they've made that mansion is now a bed and breakfast.
Yeah, we were all either evicted from our offices or had our leases, and we had to leave the building. And this guy who owned 3 or 4 cat hospitals in Denver bought the building. He was just getting married, and the woman was bringing 2 children in from her last marriage, and they wanted to have kids, and this was a first marriage for him, and he had, according to the owner, very deep pockets, and his plan was to put the offices back together into a single family home. And they were there, and I said specifically to the woman, you know, you need to find out what this building does to women, because it is not good. And she was like, oh, we're in love, and oh, we're gonna live here, and you're just jealous because you have to leave. And I was like, okay. And 3 years later, the hospitals could declare bankruptcy. Was checked into a mental hospital. They lost all of their money. They got divorced. She had triplets, which is just insane, from, you know, IVF. And they did some of the work, and then just abandoned the building. So then nobody wanted to buy it. I mean, really, nobody wanted to buy it. And if you look on YouTube, there's a movie of a guy who bought it and tries to sleep in the building for 30 days, and it's pretty wild. There's a lot of stuff that goes on. And then these people bought the building for $450,000. It's more than 6,000 square feet, with ornate stained glass and beautiful wood paneling. I mean, it's an amazing place. And they bought it for basically nothing. And I know that a lot of areas are going down, but here in Denver, everything is, you know, we've had more people move here percentage-wise than people moved in the Dust Bowl, in the Great Migration. There's just a massive influx of people to Denver, and so the property itself was worth more than they bought the building for. But the building is a historic landmark, so it's now a bed and breakfast. They've supposedly cleaned it. That's what they say. There supposedly aren't ghosts. If you look up their website, it doesn't talk about ghost hunting. I think that there's a tour there. They run a tour, but it's not like the Lumber Baron, which is here in Denver, where they're trying to solve a murder mystery that happened in the 1960s. That is not going on there at the Croak Patterson. So I don't know. I think it's called the Patterson Bed and Breakfast.
Yeah, interesting. Well, now let's move, Linda. I'd like to move to you, and maybe a sweeter
than this dark stuff.
Move through, because your place not only was the general store, but was it also where it was a special treat at that time and period for people to go get their candies, right? Was it?
Yeah, it was. They had, you know, the counter, according to the neighbors that are old enough to remember the store when it was opened back in the 20s. It had a, you know, candy counter with the penny candy, and the kids would go in with their, you know, nickel or whatever, and get a whole big bag of candy. So it was a pretty, you know, a pretty active little store, and it's an interesting area where I live. Our house is very, very tiny, and we're right on the main street. Across the street from our house is Bloody Brook, and Bloody Brook is called that because of the massacre that happened here during the French and Indian War.
Oh.
And so, you know, there's lots of stories in lots of different places around here about ghosts and, you know, and stuff. And when we first moved into the house, we had no clue about any of this. But we bought the house, and by 6 o'clock that night when I came home from work, my husband had taken down all the walls.
All of the walls?
All the walls.
Wow. And how long?
Opened it all up.
Wow.
Yeah. And I walked in and went, I mean, I hadn't even had a chance to move my furniture in yet.
Where
And
am I going to put my picture now?
yeah. And so he said, don't worry, it'll be fine. And I'm like, okay. And so he started doing construction. And as you know, if you are ghost hunting and you do these kind of things, the minute you start stirring up the energy, things start happening. Well, he would put down a screwdriver, and it would be he'd put it right down beside him. He'd turn around to do something and turn around to pick the screwdriver back up again, and it wasn't there. And he'd find it in the bathroom, or he'd find it on the doorstep. You know, and this just kept on happening. And he thought, well, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just getting old, and you know. And I was like, that's not right, honey. This is. And so I hadn't gone into my ghost feeling mama mode, as my daughters call it. And
I like that.
yeah. Well, so I didn't have my radar on, and so I just sat quiet one night and you know, turned it on, and suddenly I was surrounded. I was like, okay, this is what's going on. So there was a couple of different feelings. There was the residual energy going on with the front door where the couch is, but there's also a person, a being that comes and goes, and I think this is the one that takes things on us and moves them. And I mean, it's not malevolent at all. It's just somebody who comes through, and I don't think it's from the time that the house was here. I get the feeling that it's older. But it's interesting because as long as we recognize that, you know, like we recognize that there's beings here besides us, nothing happens. But the minute we stop recognizing it, something will disappear.
Wow.
And yeah, including my keys that were gone for like 2 years. We tore the whole house apart looking for them, could never find them, had to go get new keys made for my car and everything. And then 2 years later, all of a sudden I walk into the living room and they're sitting underneath we have a couch where you can see underneath it, and they're sitting underneath the couch. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, very, very obvious, very, no other explanation for these things. It's not like they could have gotten up inside the couch and fallen down, because the cushions lift up and we had lifted them up many times,
Sure.
you know, and it just wasn't happening. So,
that's interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a really great place.
We've had stuff like that happen to us, but I would never think that it was ghosts, and I bet it probably is. You know, because
probably
the same thing.
We have to have a serious talk with you, Claudia.
I'm just living my life.
Maybe the reason why the crows have been coming to you is to try to open you up to your higher self.
Right, pecking at my forehead. Wake up!
Yeah, there you go.
Now, Linda, you also, one of the things that people really are resonating with your story, they love the charm, because I've had several people tell me the thought of it takes your story about your home and the candy store and all this, takes them back to sort of a simpler, more lovely time, and they love that. But what is resonating very much with them is your story about the missing bracelet. Can you talk about that? Because that's been something that people are fascinated with, and also have had some jewelry experiences.
Yeah, and I want to thank oh my God, my brain just went blank. Mark, thank you. For sorry about that, Mark. For the beautiful picture you did, because it looks exactly like my bracelet. I have my bracelet on. I don't know whether you can see it.
Oh yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I wear it all the time. All the time. I mean, this is like the first thing I do in the morning is put my glasses on, put my hearing aids on, and put my bracelets on. You know, in that order. And so this one day when I woke up, I went to go get my bracelets, and the night before I had taken off the 2 charm bracelets but left that one on. And I was sitting typing, and it was bothering me while I was typing, so I took it off and put it beside me on the desk here. And so the next morning I got up, put my charm bracelets on, remembered, I need my other one, and came out here and couldn't find it. It wasn't here beside the desk.
Wow.
And so, and I said to Roger, I said, have you seen my bracelet, my peace bracelet? Because it says peace in all the different languages. And he said, well, it was on the desk. And I said, well, it's not there now. So we tore the house apart. And finally I had to go to work. So I went to work, and I'm teaching and doing everything. And we looked. I mean, I didn't have any sleeves on, so we could see the bracelet was not there. And class was over. I'm sitting down to start doing some data entry about class and stuff like that. And I'm talking to a colleague who had come in to eat lunch in my classroom. And all of a sudden I look down, and there's the bracelet on my arm.
It appeared on your arm?
On my arm.
Wow.
And I literally went, oh my God! and he jumped, and he said, what's the matter? What's the matter? I said, my bracelet's on my arm. And he goes, isn't that where it's supposed to be? I said, no, you don't understand. And so I told him the story, and he was like, oh, maybe you just didn't realize you put it on. And I'm like, no, I don't think so.
Thank goodness Roger, could clarify. Could collaborate with you, or corroborate. That's the word.
Corroborate, yes, and he did. He said nice. That wasn't on your arm when you left here.
Wow.
It was the spookiest thing. And so then I started thinking, why did this happen? How did it happen? And I don't know, but it certainly did wake me up. And Teal, are you holding up the picture? You are.
I've got Mark's picture for people who haven't seen it before.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just incredible. I mean, even the way you did the hand looks like my hand. Yeah. Roger said, "What did you send him a picture to copy?"
What I do is I psychically channel.
Well, you did a good job.
Yeah, we were talking one time, I forget when, and Mark, you said something, you asked me if I was are you wearing like a green scarf and a dark shirt? And I'm like, what? Because we were in the video.
Well, there was a spirit there, and it was showing me what she was wearing, and they were looking at her.
Yeah.
By the way, it was a child spirit.
Shocker.
When things come and go, that's called apport. And it's actually very interesting, because people will find things. I have a ring that will disappear and appear in places there is no way I would put it.
Yep.
But that's just the spirits getting your attention.
Oh yeah. Let me tell you, they've got mine. Yeah.
What do you then think that they were trying to tell you?
I don't know. I thought maybe it could be that, I was going through a period where I was thinking that my work wasn't important, and that what I was doing wasn't doing any good. Because I really, my ministry is to try to help the world heal, and to try to bring about peace in the world. And this has been my ministry since I was a child. And so I thought, well, maybe they're just telling me, stop feeling sorry for yourself and just keep on doing your work. Wake up and smell the roses. You're doing a good job.
And that you're not alone, you know, they're all with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's nice.
yeah. And I think that it made me, because right after that I started really, when I would pray not only to, my angels and to God, but I also include the ancestors, because I really think that this is what, I have a feeling that maybe my mother was part of this whole thing, because my mother's passed quite a long time ago, and she she comes to visit from time to time. So does my dad. I'll wake up smelling coffee, and we don't cook coffee in our house. And I always know I know he's there with me, and I immediately feel calmer and more centered, which coffee does to you, by the way. Grounds you. And so, I think maybe it might be that they were trying to, get my attention and tell me to chill out and stop being so crazy. But I don't know, I don't know. It was one of the spookiest things that's ever happened to me.
I bet it's such a personal thing to have happen, and to have something appear on your physical body that wasn't there before. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm amazed that you still wear it. I would probably be like,
no.
I'm not gonna.
Oh no. In fact, I feel it's so much a part of me that I feel naked when I don't have it on.
Huh.
It really is. I don't know. It feels blessed.
Well, on that note of feeling, one of the things that people tell me about your stories, Tui, is that you want to feel safe and secure when you're in your bedroom or in your home, and your stories make them realize they might not be alone. So it's a little unnerving for them. Can you talk to us a little bit about the helpful maid and also the goat lady?
Sure. Yeah, well, the helpful maid or the invisible maid, I don't know. I lived in Port Townsend, which is a wonderfully haunted seaport town in Washington State. I think we should all go there. There would be so many ghost stories. That's where I took the best, really the only great photo I've ever taken where there's an anomalous thing, spirit shape in it. I've had a couple other anomalous photos, but this one, it really looks like a lady walking across the room.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, a friend of mine had a bed and breakfast in a historic Victorian mansion. And I was over there with another friend. And long story short, I volunteered to finish tidying a room for her while she went out and got a delivery with my friend. And my friend had hurt her ankle, had a broken ankle, and couldn't be running around this 3-story mansion with me. So I was making the bed in this big, gorgeous room, and I had that feeling like someone is staring at me. I mean, just really, really strong, not just subtle. You know how it is. And I was looking around like, is there someone here with me? I felt something wow, there's something with me. So I thought, oh, well. And I look out the window, I see my friend.
It's funny because your color got brighter and then got darker.
Yeah.
And then got
really?
As soon as you did it, is someone here with you? Yeah. I don't know.
They're standing behind you now, Tui. Go ahead.
I am starting to get chills as I think about it. So anyway, so I look out the window and there's my friend, and with the delivery, the 2 friends are outside with the delivery man chatting. I'm like, okay, so I'm alone, clearly. And I make the bed and I grab, old linen, put the new linen on. And I realize as I'm leaving the room, and big heavy doors, of course, I realize, I forgot to get the garbage. I'll have to come back in. There's a garbage can in the bathroom, and then there's one, couple in 2 other garbages, little garbages. So I thought, oh well, I'll go back. And so I deposit the laundry. I come running back, and when I open the door, all 3 garbage cans are in a row at the foot of the bed, waiting for me.
Oh, no.
Wow.
I go,
wow.
well, thank you. I figure I better be polite. Thanks for your help. But I was really freaked out then, and I hastily finished cleaning it. I ran downstairs and told them. And that was just so strange. So that was the whole invisible maid. And then, of course, my friend who owned it was like, wow, that never happens to me. I could use some cheap labor. Well, you never really really happens to me either. And of course, in the other book, I do mention, I don't know what it is about cleaning. I really don't like housework, but I have had a few ghosts help me out. Now, the goat lady refers to an entity that was very interactive in this house that I rented with 3 guys. It was me, three guys in this big old house in the country. And once again, this was in Port Townsend. And I worked as a barista at the time. And one of my customers said, hey, I just found out where you're renting. I said, oh, yeah, I'm renting, the such and such place. Yeah, one of my friends grew up out there. Have you met her yet? And I'm like, what? Met who? The goat lady. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, oh, that's what everybody calls, there's a female presence who's primarily felt on the 3rd floor, which is where I slept, my bedroom was. And everyone who's lived there encounters her in one way or the other. Well, fast forward a little time. I should have mentioned that the very first time I visited this mansion, or I should say mansion, this house that we rented, I had a little daydream, and it makes me pay more attention to these little daydreams now because I've had them happen when other psychic stuff has then happened. But I'm a writer, so I daydream all the time. So I don't,
Yeah.
so we pull up, and it is sort of an older house, and I look up at the 3rd store window, and I have a daydream of a woman with sort of frizzy brown hair. She's like in her late 70s, got little round glasses, and she's happy, and she's kind of wearing like a little, the cliche white nightgown, standing there smiling. And I just have this little daydream like, oh, she's happy to see us. Isn't that neat? And I'm like, oh, well, I wouldn't have thought anything of it except that a few weeks later, my boyfriend wakes up in the middle of the night screaming, and he describes a woman exactly like my daydream. And he says she was standing at the foot of the bed looking at him, smiling. And I'm like, what? And it was right down. She had sort of frizzy brown hair to her shoulders with little glasses. I'm like, what? So and she would tell him things. He would wake up, and one time she told him, he woke up and he said, the goat lady told me, I don't know if we were calling her the goat lady yet at this time. She told me that I should eat breakfast in the morning and then I won't be so grouchy. I'm like, that's actually pretty good advice.
Breakfast.
But then weeks would go by and nothing would happen, and I'd kind of forget about her. And I was home all alone once, and I heard a woman laughing. I don't remember if I included this in the story, but I distinctly heard like, ha, 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 right next to me. I'm like, whoa. And I was, I went out, I go all through the house, nobody's there. I know nobody's there. I'm thinking, well, it must be the goat lady having a party. But the best part was when I had my wisdom teeth pulled. That was actually not the best part. I mean, that was like painful. I'd actually been turned down by several oral surgeons. They were really messed up. They only got 3 of them out of my head.
Oh, no.
And so I was really hurting when I came home. I was a mess, and I was all high on painkillers and trying to eat things. Apparently I was stabbing myself in the face with, trying to eat. I was trying to eat a tortilla chip, and they were like, put down the chips, we're putting it here. You're going to sleep on the couch. And my boyfriend at the time, had ice packs around my face and everything. He got me all set up. He was supposed to be taking care of me because our other roommates were gone. Well, he got called into work like the 2nd or 3rd day. And I was still just stuck to that couch downstairs. Well, he got called into work. He was going to be gone for like a 5-hour window. He was going to come back after dark. I mention that because our stairwell light had burned out. And this happened a lot. Pretty much every 2 to 3 weeks, our stairwell light would burn out. And we didn't have a ladder tall enough to get to it. So I'd have to stand on the edge, grab onto it, and precariously, really stupidly lean over and,
oh my God.
And do it. And I never wore socks or anything when I did this. I always did it barefoot so I could grab it with my toes. It was very precarious. The guys would always spot me. It was stupid. I wouldn't do it now probably. But I would do, the light bulb's out. So the light bulb was out, and my boyfriend's like, I have to be gone for 5 hours, and there's a Rocky marathon on. So I was watching all the Rockies, and I could relate because I felt like I'd been punched in the face, So watch Rocky after you've had oral surgery. It's really the thing. So anyway, he jokes as he's going. He's like, and by the way, don't change the light bulb while I'm gone. I'm like, oh, ha, ha, because I'm all, I can't even move. I mean, I'm just sitting there slurping liquids and just barely functioning.
My face was like this big. Did your face swell up too? Yeah.
Everything. My eyes, I was like watching. I was a wreck. I really looked, oh yeah. Oh, so especially the one that couldn't get out. Anyway, so he comes home, and he, out of habit, he walks in, and he's going to go upstairs for a second. He flicks the light on the stairs, and much to his surprise, it turns on.
Wow.
And he goes, what did you change the light bulb? I'm like, do I look like I've done anything today? Oh, okay. Well, well, you know what? I'm like, it might have, light bulbs sometimes come back to life, right? Maybe something jiggled, the house settled, it turned back on. But he, a couple minutes later, he goes, you know what? Because he had bought, because it was constantly going out, he had in it, we had those old fashioned style light bulbs. He had gone and bought some energy saving bulbs. And so he had thought, the next time this light bulb that's always going out goes out, we are going to put an energy saving bulb in it. And so he came in, he goes, I have a really weird idea. I'm just going to check something out. He had a strange look on his face. He runs upstairs, he comes back down, and his eyes are like, whoa. And he's like, okay, you got to tell me the truth. Are you messing with me? I'm like, no, I am not messing with you. Is there any way? Did you have a friend come over and change the light bulb? I said, no, I haven't even answered the phone. He goes, all right, this is really weird. I just looked, and it's an energy saving bulb up there. It's not. And then the next morning when he went outside to his car, on top of our garbage can was the old style bulb just sitting there.
Wow.
So we just blamed it on the goat lady and thanked her. Maybe she thought I'd be stupid enough to try and change it. I don't know. But
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, how many ghosts does it take to change a light bulb? I don't know.
I love that it was a different bulb. So that was sort of something that you could have the baseline of it was changed.
That's what really got us. I mean, I think we would have talked ourselves out of it otherwise, but that was just like, whoa, this is too much now.
Yeah.
Now, will you tell us also about your tea time guest? Tell us about that.
Oh, sure.
And I don't know if the photo will show well, but while you tell the story,
Okay. Sure. Yeah. So this, as I mentioned, once again, in Port Townsend, I think we need to go up there and do a whole book about Port Townsend ghosts. A friend of mine, different friend, was renting a house, and it was one of these Victorian style mansions, of which Port Townsend is a bit of a time capsule. It's a bit like Jefferson, Texas, where they had a boom time. They were hoping the railroad would come. It didn't. And then everybody just left. And luckily, they didn't tear down the old buildings. So it's a bit of a time capsule. A lot of movies end up being filmed there because there's just a lot of those old painted ladies, as they call those Victorian-style homes there. And people do maintain them. There's some beautiful ones. So my friend had one with a gorgeous view. And as a housewarming, she decided to have a little afternoon tea party. Well, I had that week as well, just bought like my first official digital camera. And I was really excited about it, but I didn't know, I don't like using the flash. So if I can help it, because I like to use natural light, but I wasn't sure how well it would work. So as the afternoon grew dimmer, I kept taking shots just to see at one point it would get too blurry. And I wasn't looking at them. This was the type of thing where I would have to download the photos later. And plus we were chit-chatting and drinking tea, and we had a white elephant gift exchange. And so at one point during the white elephant gift exchange, I took a photo of all the ladies. So in the photo, you can kind of see them all looking off to the side because they're watching the person unwrap her gift. And then I'm standing really still, and I took a few pictures, just to see, and then put my camera down, forgot about it. Well, a week later or so, I download my photos, and I'm just clicking through them on the computer, and all of a sudden I see one, and it just gives me chills because there we all are. It started to get dim. I like I said, I wasn't using the flash. Oh, and I should say no one was smoking, and there was no incense being burned. We didn't have a fog machine or, anything like that. I don't know what else, a disco ball or anything. This was just a mellow party. There is this shape in the middle of it. To me, looked like a woman, like in a dress, walking through our party, and it gave me chills, and I thought, what? And I actually even sent the photo into Coast to Coast AM, and they ran it on their site. And to me, it's of all the photos I've ever taken, it's the one that really it set the bar high. I would love to get another photo like that. I wish I had taken more. I didn't know. I just happened to take that one, capture that one moment. It was very fun.
Yeah, it definitely looks like there's somebody there.
I liked it. I think when we talked to you and we were talking on the show, the radio show, you suggested that maybe it was the lady of the house coming to be part of the party. And that feels really right to me. I feel like she joined our party. It was all women there, and it was a really exuberant energy. If I were on the other side, I'd want to go to a party like that. I'd crash that party. So.
And you were honoring her house. You were doing
that's true.
So it was a good feeling,
Yeah.
Feelings, feelings there's so many different kinds you can have, and Mark Fults, you elicit them all, it seems, in people. You take them all the way from something sentimental to absolutely, well, now how am I ever going to sleep? I need
yes, scary.
That. So, you have quite a few stories in the book that are fantastic. One that people find interesting because they link it a bit to your psychic lineage, through your grandmother, is the story of your uncle and the Could you maybe talk a little bit about that and your history, how you feel like you're linked to her psychically?
Yeah. My grandmother, who was born my mother's mother, we called her Granny. She was born in 1896. Wow. And when she was about 6 years old, her father was killed in a lumber accident. And she had to go live with aunts who were just terrible, terrible people. And she had a lot of different losses in her life. When she was just married, her mother died of an appendicitis. And she was in the hospital with an appendicitis at the exact same time, and her mother died and she didn't.
Wow.
And then her first two babies, the first one was like a 10-pound baby boy, and he bled to death because the doctor didn't tie the umbilical cord tight enough. Wow. And my father had to carry the baby's corpse through the snow to get him to the hospital before he died. And she fell on ice and lost her next baby. And while she was in the hospital for that, she saw her mother's spirit come and take this, show her that she was taking the spirit of the baby with her. And that was really when her psychic abilities kicked in, and she was very, very psychic, very Christian little lady, but very psychic. And the family always treated it kind of with awe, but also they kind of poo-pooed it, and she ended up having 10 more kids.
Wow.
And hard to love her.
Oh, big, big number of kids. And her youngest son in 1950 they all lived in this big house in a place called East Chattanooga. And he had decided he was going to take his Packard and go to Spring City, which is about an hour away, and see his other brother. And he had two friends that were going with him. And my grandmother just went, "No, you can't go. If you go, you're not going to come back. You'll be dead." And he they're very, very stubborn people. So, my mother's the same way, so if you tell them they can't do it, they go, "You can't."
They're on their way.
Right.
So he insisted on going. And she would go to bed. They were like farmers. They would go to bed at 8 o'clock and wake up at 5 or 6. And when he left, she begged him to stay, and he just wouldn't do it. And she made a big fuss, and she was freaking the other kids out. And she put a chair facing the front door so she could be there for the people from the funeral home to come. That's how serious it was. And they kept trying to get her to go to bed, and she went and lay down, but she wouldn't get undressed. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, they got a phone call, and it was from our relative, Allie Coulter, from the Coulter Funeral Home. And my Uncle Bill, when he answered the phone, he said, "Oh, Allie, I'm glad you're calling. You can tell Mom she's just being silly." And she says, "No." So we just came from the wreck. He's dead. They're all dead. And he had ran into a bridge with his Packard and knocked the engine to the back seat.
Oh,
wow. His best friend was in the center, and all that, it just, the engine killed him. The other man was thrown into the river, and might have lived. He had lost his arm, but part of the car landed on him and drowned him.
Wow.
And they said my uncle, every bone in his body was broken. And they just opened the door and he just oozed out of the car. And she knew he wasn't coming. I mean, she was the only one that was prepared for it. And
Wow.
so if she told you something, you know, then
I would
have
listen.
been like, yes, you know,
Yeah.
I'll listen to you there.
Right.
And she was always seeing ghosts and stuff. And then in her last, so she always was telling great ghost stories. So, and that got me interested when I was young. And then also I started being psychic. And I feel like I just got that from her. And then I went through a traumatic experience when I was 30 where I got attacked in a random act of violence.
Oh,
and
no.
Psychic abilities came through because I had 2 near-death experiences.
Wow.
But she was very psychic, and I feel like I really got it naturally from her. And but if she told you a rock was gonna fall out of the sky, I would.
You better duck.
Wow.
Rock.
Wow.
And but she was very amazing, but it was all natural. I mean, but she would just come out with something, and you know, and some of them just for some reason just refused to believe that she had the talent. And in my family, you know, of course, you know, I'm a oddity in many ways, so they're all, you know, they're amazed by it, but they're also like, yeah.
Yeah, I have the same problem, Mark, in my family. I mean, my mother and my mother's mother were psychic, and you know, they knew things and saw things, and they were able to, you know, to share stuff with people. And so I was never told that I didn't have it when I would see things and when I would feel things. But the rest of the family, it's like, oh yeah, crazy Linda, you know. And hey, I've just learned to find the people like you that understand, and so I can share these wonderful things with you guys, and it's great, you know.
You found your tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I want to open up to the tribe. And is there anything that you guys would like to ask anybody, or would just like to say?
Well, I was going to see, get you to tell about York.
Oh. Yeah. York, oh gosh. Okay, York was something that, you know, I travel to Europe frequently, and I'm a sacred site hunter, so I should have more bravado than I did in York. I had it up to the point that I really needed it, and then you know, I was very you know, blasé about it, and then it was like, wow, okay, this is like a bad B movie, and those go south quickly. But York had called to me for years, and I could never understand what it was. It was like it was actually calling to me, come here, and specifically, you know, to a part of York. And every time something would come up and I would really want to go, it would be my first place that I was going to go because of this calling, this inclination I felt. And yet at the end, it would get cut out of the trip. It happened over and over and over. Well, this last holiday season, Christmas and New Year's, I thought, you know, this time I'm going to start in York and then go out from there. And then that way it won't get cut out of the trip. And so I felt specifically drawn to a certain area. And I do always ask, you know, God, I believe in God, I'm a Christian. And then of course I'm conflicted with all these gifts that he's given me. You know, do I use them? Are they good? Are they bad? I mean, this has been a lifelong thing. I don't know if anybody else is. I just always don't want to do the wrong thing. So, but I do ask, you know, let me know the right place I should go, where I should be. What is it you're trying to show me? What is it I'm supposed to learn on this journey? So of course, this ends up being, you know, a 650-year-old house. It's a 3-story house. That
so you wait. You were drawn to a specific house.
A specific house.
Wow.
Specific house. And it really did disturb me, because I had dreamed about seeing myself in this specific house, but I didn't know it got there on the other side of the door. So I was drawn to this house, and then when I saw the outside, I thought something seemed familiar about it, which is impossible. I've never been to York, been all around Europe, not York. And so, you know, it just was a pull. So I get there, and I hosted 7 other people. So it was a big trip, you know, and I took, you know, my daughters and their boyfriends and several friends. And so I had this big trip. So a big troop of people with me. So in that, I had this 3-story house I rented, and right adjoining it through a courtyard was another 3-story house. And so I rented both of them for 4 days. And so I met the owner, and he was very nice. It happened to be when we went that York was having some of the worst flooding they'd had in decades. It was really something. But these houses were up on a hill, so they were protected, even though even several blocks down, things were underwater, houses, cars, everything. I mean, it was a bad situation, but we were perfectly safe. So we proceeded to go. He hands me modern keys for some of the locks, you know, within the house, but the key to get into this old door that had been there in this wall, which was built by the Romans, I mean, it was that old, was this just giant, super heavy key. And I've never felt anything like that. And when he put it in my hand, it was like something was calling to me. I could almost hear these faint voices. And so you put this big key into the door, and you go in then into this courtyard where this Roman wall still stands, and then to the door. And I go in, and I paused for a minute because it was like I was stepping in over the threshold into somebody waiting for me. And it was. So I go in, and it started right away. You know, we had the flight to Europe is a bit long, and then it's a couple hours to York by car, and you know, so we were all tired. I got all of my guests, who in fact, let's see, all but my daughters, you know, had not been to Europe before. So I wanted to make sure everybody was settled in the houses, and they're joined by, like the stairway, and one joins, you know, right there where they connect in like this little hallway. And so because I rented both houses, we had all the doors opened up to that. So you could go from one house, you know, through the entryway into the other house. And so everybody's settled, everybody's fine. I go up to I'm staying in the one that's 650 years old. The other one's not as old, but it's very old. So I'm on the 2nd floor. And I have the whole, you know, that whole floor is to myself, and I get everybody settled. I shut the door just because I kept feeling like somebody was so intently watching me at the door, and I actually saw a shadow move back, and it was I rushed over there, and there was nobody there, and everybody was asleep. So I thought, I'll just shut the door, and then I won't see them watching me. So I shut the door, but it started immediately, first night for me, and I kept it to myself. I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to scare them. Everything was flooding. We were it was just not the time to try to find a new place. And so nobody else said anything. And so I thought, I'll just keep this to myself. But as soon as I got in bed, the thing that I noticed is, because I travel so much, this is not new to me. I don't have to prep myself to be there. I'm just used to it. I fall in. I'm very safety conscious. So I knew and locked down both houses myself. So I knew everything was locked. I knew the windows were locked. I knew the doors were locked. I had the keys. We were safe. So once I know, because my first thing being a skeptical believer is, you know, if I hear something, I think somebody's trying to break in. I don't think it's Aunt Tilly, you know, so I'm a practical person in that way. I'm like Claudia in that way. Like, it's so, but I was in bed, and on this one side of me was all windows down this one side of my bed, and it overlooked the big cathedral, because I'm on the 2nd floor, so you could see the big cathedral, York Cathedral and everything. And so it was very beautiful, full moon. But I, you know, close the drapes, and then I hear tap, 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 tap. And I thought, is that pigeons? you know? And I looked, I got up, and I even sat and I looked, and there was no pigeons, you know, and I know there was pigeons somewhere because there are pigeons all over York, you know, and I thought, I may not see them, but it must be that. So then I ignore it, excuse me, and I go to bed again, and I feel the covers move off my feet and off my shoulders and be pulled down. And I wanted to ignore it, except it was still moving as I was watching it. And so I sat up and I thought, okay, time for maybe another light in the room. Turn another light on. As soon as I'm standing up, fully awake, there's no doubt about it, harder, tap, 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 tap on the window, like somebody, you know, knocking.
Right.
And I thought, now that's a person at the window. So somebody's playing a trick on me here, not in here. I mean, they're not in here, but that part is a trick. So I run, see nothing, and I run around. I have my own kitchen in this second floor. So I run around, there's windows there, and I think I'm going to catch who's doing this. It's just a prank. So they probably think, oh, the Americans are here to stay. So and nobody. And it was a big full moon. And because there's this huge courtyard and the great walls around it, I mean, nobody can get over it, quite honestly. And also that gate in the wall was locked, so nobody could even get into the courtyard to get to us. But I wanted to tell myself that they could. So I just said, I guess I can catch that prankster. So grab my covers, go to bed. It didn't stop all night. And I would hear knocks on the door. And I thought it was my kids. I mean, full-fledged, was somebody there? Like knocking. And I would, later I told Mark I made the mistake of telling them to come on in. You know, you don't have to ask.
Think of vampire lore, you know?
Right.
Come in. You know, and so I literally was inviting them in, but when I got to the door, nobody was there. Now, at one point, it was so bad, like the energy so tense. I thought, okay, I need to go check on everybody. And as I got out to the landing, I could hear this little faint moaning and shadows moving at the bottom of the first staircase. And I could hear like a woman sobbing, you know, and like a little baby.
Oh.
And none of us had babies with us. And I couldn't imagine, you know, any of the three girls. None of the three girls that were with me would have been at the foot of the stairs crying, you know. So I look upstairs and I kind of walk up the third floor and everybody's sound asleep, door shut, okay. And then I saw again that shadow move on the first landing down there, and I thought, well, here we go. So I did remember to hold on to the railing quite tightly, because that's one of the things I guess is my sort of fear. I've fallen from a second floor and broke my tailbone once from being pushed. So I think about that, because sometimes they'll push you, you know. So
Yeah.
Now, were you pushed by a person
I
or
do know that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So, you know, so I was holding on to the stairwell, and as I was going down, you know, it's like they stopped and they recognized that somebody recognized them. And then it went away, and I was like, suck it up, Buttercup, let's go, you know. And so I just what I do is I just pretend like it's not happening, and I don't engage in it. I just move forward. And so I didn't engage them, and I was scared, but I just went with it. And so I went down the stairs, and oh my gosh, when I got to the foot of the stairs, it was so cold. I know we were there in the wintertime, but all the heat was working. It was cold in certain spots that were kind of swirling through my legs. It was very weird feeling. And then I went into the second house there across the landing, and I really quietly peeked in. Everybody's sound asleep downstairs. I went up just partway up the second floor, and you could tell everybody's asleep up there. Nothing was moving, but it felt so strange, so strange. And I thought, okay, and I checked, the doors are still bolted because they had extra bolts inside. And I thought, there's nobody in here. Everybody's safe. So again, that's my main priority. I go back to bed. The knocking continues. This every night. It was the knocking on the windows, the knocking on the door multiple times. My covers would move.
Wow.
You could hear people walk across, there was a certain threshold from my bed over to the kitchen area, and the floorboards were such and so old that you would hear them walking, you know? And I was like, everybody go to stall. I'm going to bed. I don't care. You know? But and I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything. And then when it got to be the third day, you know, nobody had said anything, and everybody was wanting to see different things. Different places were closing, and because of the flooding getting higher, it was rising, the waters, and a lot of museums were closed. And so I said, look, let's abandon our idea of everybody moving in a pack, and let's try for everybody to see whatever they want to see while they can, or, you know, let's meet when we get together this evening. You know, let's just get together late afternoon. We'll meet at the church. We're going to have, you know, the mass that night, and then we'll go on. So everybody was grouped up except me. And they were like, well, we can't leave you here. And I said, well, yeah, please, I don't need a babysitter. That was my I don't need a babysitter. This all the time. They're like, these are really old houses though, you know, or you're not scared to stay here? And I said, psh, please. I do this for a living. This is nothing. Yeah, I mean, I'm all bravado and all blah, blah, blah. And I thought it was daytime, and I thought, I mean, I should be fine. I forgot that all of the worst things that have ever happened to me ever have been in the daytime. Ever. I don't need a dark, stormy night. Give me a bright, sunny day, and like something's going to happen. And so everybody left reluctantly, and I thought they came right back in, somebody, because I could hear them in the second house, because all the doors, you know, had the doors open, the threshold open. And it sounded like somebody was going through things, like rifling through luggage or things. And I called out, nobody answered. And so I ran down the stairs, and I thought, oh my gosh, did they not lock the door properly? And then somebody's robbing us. And so I'm a Texan, so we just run at it. We're going to take care of it. You know, we don't. And so I'm down the stairs, and I'm going to catch them. If there's nobody there, nothing's out of place, the door's bolted, they locked everything. Nope, but it certainly had a very strange feeling. And so I was like, I just go on back to my house. So I went in there thinking that's better. It's not better. And so I went back, and I was going to do some writing, and I was doing some live broadcasting because I had a international press pass. And so I was doing stuff there, and I was doing stuff in for Hogmanay in Edinburgh, Scotland. And so I had things going on, you know, a lot of stuff to do. So I thought, I'm going to just work, and I'm just going to not think about this. This is all nonsense, you know, and even though I knew it wasn't. And I kept on with these voices and hearing things. And then above me in the third floor, there was like somebody walking in heavy boots, moving around the bedroom up above me. Well, I knew nobody was there. And so I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to go look. So I creep up the third floor stairs, and then they turn again, and you go up into the room. Nobody was there. And I went ahead and went in, even though it felt like very foreboding, you know, I shouldn't go. And I looked everywhere thinking, is there somebody hiding or playing a prank? Or there was nobody. And so as soon as I get down to the second floor and into my room, the boots start again, and at the same time, I hear them coming down the stairs, and it really did bother me. And the phone rang, and I was like,
"This gets me."
Because and I was like, what? Because when I got to my room and I heard the boots, you know, right before the phone rang, I said, listen, if you guys want to contact me so bad, you want to talk to me so bad that every night you're relentless at me, then go ahead. Here I am. Hello. What do you want to say? Stupid. Don't do that. Because you can hear them moving, and they're coming down the stairs. Then the phone rings. And I was like, thank God the phone's ringing, because I need the help, you know. And so I go and answer the phone, and the phone's dead. I mean, the phone's dead. We had no TV service or anything because of the lines being flooded. But I thought, oh, it came back on. It's miraculous. No, it wasn't. It was a dead line, except the voice started this.
Wow.
And it was this strange, like growling. It was part human, part not human, very guttural.
Oh my God.
It was talking and talking, and then the boots start running. They start running down the stairs. This thing is on the phone. I have never slipped into my shoes shoes and down. I mean, I didn't know if it was behind me because it sounded like it was. And I've never run out of a place, but that was the worst experience. I was like, it really was running through my mind. This is like a stupid bad B movie where there's some mysterious
Scooby-Doo.
They didn't go get out.
No, they don't. They never end well for the person, right? So
Yeah.
I was like, I'm out of here. And you could still hear the voice, even though I threw the phone down, you could still hear the voice coming down, like, sounded like rushing wind. I'm telling you, it was never experienced.
Wow.
Running after me as I'm going out the door, and my hand was shaking when I was going out the door, which that never happens to me either, because I'm always like, I go cold, I go real cold, stony, like I was out of there. And I looked behind, there was nobody behind me, but you could hear the sounds, I locked that door so quick, and I ran out and I locked that big bolty gate, and I went out and I just leaned against the outside wall, and people in a normal world is rushing by. And a couple people look at me, I probably looked like, oh my God, and like, is she okay? But they didn't, help me. And I just stood there for a minute, and I thought, wow, did that that happened, but did that happen? It's one of those things, it's like, it's too crazy to happen. Well, meanwhile, on the other, and by the way, I didn't share any of that until, we were leaving, and then come to find out, everybody was having these ghostly experiences the whole time. Nobody wanted to scare anybody else.
I love that too.
In bed, they had people that were tripping the night light that comes on, whenever something passes by. There was
motion detector, like,
circling her bed every night. Everybody.
Wow.
And the one night right before we left, what brought the conversation up was there was the moaning that went all through the house, the man moaning, very loud. Everybody heard that, and people came from the third floor. Everybody heard that, and so that the gig was up. But meanwhile, on the American side of the world, Mark was having psychic experiences about where I was. And so I'll let you talk about that, Mark.
Wow.
But I want to interject. Didn't you mention that the phone itself wasn't even plugged in?
It wasn't.
Yeah, that part really gets me.
Yeah, so it could ring, but I'm telling you, it rang.
Yeah.
With the boot, all the things, I was like, bad B movie.
Uh,
It didn't happen. It was bizarre.
Were you wearing a red shirt? Like in Star Wars, the red shirts always die.
Yeah, that's right.
I think about what I was wearing, because there's pictures of me, so I'll look and see what I was wearing. Yeah. But Mark, you want to tell them what you experienced?
Well, I started picking up information from her. I didn't know about all of this. I just knew that I started picking up some kind of communication, because I'm a channel, and I do a lot of work, and Teal and I, we're pretty close, and so when she got back from her trip, I started telling her, we started talking about this experience, and I started going through and going, well, you told them to speak,
Yeah.
and they spoke, and there's kind of like a spiritual dial tone, and I've had spirits before where they want to talk to you verbally, like we are talking, and it will start off like, and if you let it go long enough, it will turn into words. But these spirits were so old and so advanced that they really were communicating to me over here. And since she had said, talk to me, they wanted her to talk to them. So they and so I started drawing pictures of the people that I saw. There's a weeping woman with a weeping child that's at the bottom of the stairs, and there's a woman named Mrs. Borley who kind of keeps those spirits suppressed. Mm-hmm. And there was this man who had been sacrificed hundreds of years ago, named Lancashire, or either a title or a name. And then there was, other things, but through the communication, the spirits really wanted to communicate, and they didn't have anything to communicate with. So they started getting me.
And I ran.
You ran. I said, well, if I ever go with you, we won't run. We'll sit there and we'll get them to talk, because they would have talked physically.
You're like a wireless hotspot.
Yeah. They're so old that they just start that. You know, they're very talky. Take my word for it. And so they wanted a communication device, and I devised a communication device to speak with, and it's circular. And they showed me how they wanted it and showed me the artwork they wanted. And after I showed it to her and we were talking about it, she started showing me pictures. And she's showing me pictures of the York trip, and all of a sudden, you know, la 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 la, and then there's this picture of a round Ouija board.
Right by my bed. It slept by my bed. I didn't even think about it.
And I said, "What's that?" And she says, "Well, they put it by the bed so you can talk to the spirits." And I went, "Well, that's what they've been looking at.
Is the round board.
And it's a round piece." I said they wanted it more complex.
Mm-hmm.
And and they are kind of a collective, intelligent group of spirits, and they continually I got like 6 or 7 or more communication devices ideas from talking to them. So I mean, if she goes back, I mean, she'll be able to talk to them. They'll be able to speak. But, but if we went, I could make them talk.
Yeah, he called. He's like, "What are you getting?" I said, "I feel like its name is Deja, you know, almost like deja vu, but Deja." So the board that he made for me, we call it Deja, but it's very strong. In fact, Tui, you got to meet Deja.
Oh yeah.
The 3 of us had a little sleepover before the Shades of Angel. And it's very powerful board, you know.
Oh yeah.
So very interesting, but yeah, that's my York tale.
Yeah. But if we go back, they will talk to her physically, like we're talking. They will talk like that.
Yeah, and Mark did not know, as he was sketching these people that were in the house, he did not know that was who I was experiencing. So I think that was pretty interesting, you know, that he had the correct connections.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's the way I like to work. I don't like to know stuff beforehand. And
you know, Mark, I never heard of anybody talking about a collective group of ghosts before, but I've had that experience.
Yeah.
When I got divorced 15 years ago, I stayed in an old house in York, Maine, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And it was the house where the colonial judge lived. And I went to go, you know, I knew the minute I stepped in the house, the place was haunted. And there had been stories later on that people had shared with me about seeing things and feeling things. And so I had a room in the upstairs where I was sleeping, and I could feel the presences, you know, from time to time. So it was the day that we signed the divorce decree finally, and I was spent. I was spent. And so I come back to just rest before I had to go and do other things. And I went to lay down, and I could feel the presence. And when I looked up, in the corner of the room was this group of people from all different ages.
Wow.
All different time periods. I mean, some of them were in colonial clothes, but some of them were in Edwardian clothes. There was a little girl. There was, you know, there was a black man. He looked, you know, like probably a slave. And they were all like in the corner of the room. And I looked at them and said, "Look, I just need to sleep. Will you leave me alone, please?" And I laid down and put the covers over my head. I have never had such a good sleep.
Wow.
Honest to goodness, I swear it was the best sleep I've ever had. They from then on, I felt like I was being protected.
Nice.
Yeah.
You know?
But you had to ask, you know what I mean? They might have just been waiting. You made her, I think this is something that's really important when related to things. I think there is actually a lot of help around us, and we don't always ask for it. And maybe things are sitting there waiting, like, just like we always say, oh, you know, don't say yes and invite a vampire in. Well, the same goes for good things too. Things aren't going to meddle with you. You gave them permission. They were probably dying to, like, gosh, we give her a great night's sleep if she wanted it. She could really use it, but gotta ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It was
even
really
because
something.
something is scary doesn't mean it's really bad. It's just
Yeah.
scary to us.
Right.
And all of us as, investigators and stuff like that, I mean, I've had the crap scared out of me several times. And, but, I'll get over it pretty quickly because you really can't be scared.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Curiosity usually trumps it, and then I get scared.
The first experience you have will make you jump out of your drawers.
Yeah.
And then you just go, okay, all right, what do you want? And then you deal with it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily, and they may have just been very concerned about you. And
that's the feeling I had, and and then I thought about it. I mean, they to me it felt like people that had passed through this place. This was the judge's office as well as his home. The room right below where I was staying was the courtroom at that time. So I just felt like these are people that had been persecuted too. I was leaving a 30-year abusive relationship.
Wow.
And so
Yay, good for you. Yay. Yay.
Yeah. And so I really felt like they were protecting me, and I wasn't afraid of them. And it's interesting because my experiences with the other side have always been, like I haven't been really like scared. There have been places where I felt creepy and said, okay, I have to leave. This is not cool. I had a friend whose house was haunted. They invited me to come and they said, do you feel anything here? And I was like, yeah, there's a woman standing by your sink. It's the woman who lived here. I described it to a T. They said, well, upstairs is one of the rooms and the kids won't go in there. They keep on saying that it's really bad in there. And I walked in, and the minute I walked in, I felt like I was being suffocated. And I said, you need to cleanse this room. Explain to them how to do it. I said this is where somebody died, and that energy is hanging there. And I said, but I feel like I can't breathe. So we left. I went downstairs. The minute I got downstairs, I was fine. I got the image again of the woman standing in the kitchen. She had a huge smile in her face. I said, she's really happy with what you're doing to the house, because they had renovated it and restored it. And so months later, I met this person again, and they said, you're never going to believe what happened. And I was like, okay, yeah, what? And come to find out, there was 2 sisters that lived in the house, and one of the sisters died of pneumonia.
Wow.
And she literally suffocated.
You picked that up. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was in that room. And so they cleansed it. And once they cleansed it, the girls loved it. They loved to go in there, and they loved to play. It became their playroom. And so, so I understand, Tui, what you were talking about. I mean, Teal, what you were talking about being, like, oh my God, because you feel that energy.
Yeah.
It hits you like a brick wall, and it something's going on. But I've always had really good, thank God, results.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, so I'll be back. I mean, in fact, another one more last point on that. As I left, I didn't have any bad scared feeling even going back in there. It was just in that moment. I was with the footsteps. I just could see this man in my head, this man running down the stairs at me. I didn't know what was going to happen in the crazy phone. I was out of there. But I went back in and I was fine. I mean, they messed with me the last night, knocking, the whole thing. But I told them as everybody was out and I was the last one out locking up, I said, well, thank you for, I always introduce myself as I go in, and thank you for letting me stay here and all that kind of thing. I said, well, until I see you next time, until next time I'll be back. And Mark said he got a distinct feeling, and he didn't know I said that. And he said, I got a distinct feeling that they were waiting for you to come back, that there was some sort of agreement you were coming back. And I was, I did. I agreed.
There you go.
Until I return.
Until I return.
Well, maybe we should put together a tour where we all go places and I'll bumble around and have my bumbly life, and you guys can have these great experiences.
I think we should all definitely go rent those 2 places and stay again, because I think if we're so active in both of them, it would be really interesting. And York is beautiful. And I didn't know it. How I didn't know it, I don't know. But York is considered the most haunted city in
Wow.
England. You know?
I'm not surprised. The interesting thing about that, Teal, is that my ex-husband, that's where his family comes from.
Really?
Wow.
Yes, they're actually royalty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it could be his family there. Yeah.
York. That's interesting. Where you were was a York town. You know?
Yeah, the name of the town that we lived in was York, Maine. Yeah.
That's
Interesting. Not really.
Wow.
Kind of spooky.
Well, it's kind of small world stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else before we close, people, or are we good until we meet again for part 2?
I think we're good.
Yeah.
All right. I want to
Wonderful.
thank you. Seriously, you're all so interesting. I want to thank you that you're part of the book, and also, more importantly, our friendship. And I just thank you for your time. I think it's been fascinating. I know that people are going to enjoy getting to put a face with the stories and get to know you a little bit better. And so I look forward to putting this out to the world. And we will then connect back up for part 2. So
Awesome.
Good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
This was fun.
Bye.